political polarization, compliments of the media. You know, nearly 3/4 of Americans say that the media is making political polarization worse, and half of U.S. adults nowadays, they get their news from online sources, X, Facebook, Instagram, any social media. He is an expert in branding, and he's the head of Idea Grove, Scott Baradell. On this day, Scott, where we have a headline where Donald Trump is just considering, maybe not participating in the ABC News debate with Kamala Harris, because it is ABC News, the network, that is playing along with Kamala Harris and opening up the mics, where originally they shut down the mics, now they're going to open up the mics. And yeah, that's obviously, well, at least to me, not fair to Donald Trump, where you have a controlled setting. You're going to open up a mic so a former prosecutor can just carp away and interrupt and filibuster the next campaign and get a sweet soundbite trying to frustrate Donald Trump. So I think they, the dinosaur, so-called legacy media, they only have themselves to blame because when it comes to the American public not trusting them. What do you think?
Well, I think there's certainly been big changes. I think, in a previous generation, whether it was ABC, CBS, NBC, there was just a general trust that they all held the same standards as it relates to journalism, and that applied to big major newspapers and other outlets, and that's kind of all out the window now. Every outlet, big or small, and no matter how long it's been around, is judged individually, and that's what Donald Trump is doing. He's saying, well, I saw your Sunday show. I saw how these specific reporters asked questions. CNN, I don't like CNN, but CNN was more fair, and he's literally looking at outlet by outlet. He's not assuming, all of these outlets, because they're major networks, can be equally trusted. He's calling them out as being different.
Every now and then you see some new channel, internet channel, or some platform making a claim, we'll be unbiased, we will be fair, we will be unfiltered, we're going to give you we're going to give you the information the way it is, because they see a demand in the market. People want just to get information. They don't want to get the spin. There's still a demand for that, but I don't see how anybody would be successful. I don't think there is a way to prevent spin, because the very choice of news, the very news directors or the assignment editors choosing to go down this rabbit hole versus this other rabbit hole, a story that should be covered and expanded versus a story that is generally irrelevant and really not top priority, that itself is showing bias on the part of news decision makers. So I don't know if there truly is could be an unbiased network or news provider.
Well, I think it would be very difficult today. I think there have been some attempts, like I think News Nation kind of has talked that language. But, I mean, bottom line is people want the outrage, people want the controversy, and people want to read news that is what they already believe, confirms their biases. That's just kind of what we got used to. That's what we click on. That's what makes money, unfortunately. But I will say in the past, I was part of that previous generation that worked in news, and because there was not this kind of edict from the top or understanding from the top in terms of how the news should be presented, because you had conservatives and liberals and people with all different kind of viewpoints in the newsroom, there would literally be healthy debate about these things. You'd have people of different political persuasions working on the same stories, and you'd come out with something that, if not perfectly objective, at least reflected more than one narrow set of views.
There's no way to get back to that. And even back then, I
wish there were.
Yeah, even back then, brother, I would disagree. Even back then, in the glory days back, what would you say, the 60s or the 70s or maybe even in the 80s, the great news anchors, the great networks. Even then, I'll go back to decision making, the stories that should have been emphasized related to where we spend our money and national debt, and lack of focus on education shortcomings and the public education system, all those things that they decided not to cover a long time ago. That in itself showed a bias and a disservice. And now with everything so fractured and so many channels and so many online channels, there's just no way to put that genie back in the bottle. And you're right. people will gravitate to the information. They'll go to MSNBC or they'll go to Fox or whatever channel in order to get the information that they want. Yeah. All right, brother.
I'm with you, unfortunately.
Yeah. Thank you. Where do folks find you, Scott? Where do folks find you?
IdeaGrove.com. That's my agency.
Okay, my brother. Appreciate your time. From IdeaGrove.com. It's Scott Baradell.